If you're having trouble understanding what the Portuguese say, imagine me as a teacher and a coach. I'm serious. How do I check if sound that went into your brain via your ears is being decoded into clear messages? Since I can't peek into your brain, I need to help you spit it out, and then I'll evaluate. Did you understand the message? What did you mishear? What did you not hear at all? And why? I could, of course, just have a conversation with you, and quickly I would know if I ask you about your day and you answer me your age. It will definitely be a short conversation. This actually happened to me when I was 5 and had my first English lesson. I got mixed up by "how are you" and "how old are you?" One word difference. But having a conversation may not yet be feasible and/or daunting, so I've come up with 2 other ways for checking your listening comprehension. Olá, sou Catarina. I'm a Portuguese polyglot. At the Language Unschool, I help you find your voice in European Portuguese by listening first. One way I use to check how tuned your ears are to naturally spoken Portuguese is by having you read out loud a short sentence. You can see an example of this in this video. I'll link it below. There's no listening involved though, so honestly, it's not my favorite strategy. I much prefer having you do a phonetic dictation. I loved doing dictations at school growing up. The advantage for you here is that you don't have to worry about spelling. However, if you do spell things correctly, I'll get even more information out of you than I initially intended. A plus for me, but really, it's kudos to you. So I asked a few Portuguese learners from my list to transcribe phonetically or not 3 audios. Unfortunately, I won't be able to review all of them here for the sake of time. However, I do have a placement quiz on my website that includes this sort of exercise, and afterwards we can even talk about how I can help you. There will be a link in the description. The brave phonetic dictators, oops, that doesn't sound good. Anyway, I'm going to review the phonetic dictations I received from Michael, Adriana, Jody, Doug, Laurie, and KJ. As you can see, most English native speakers, but we do have some exotic Slovak and Chinese in the mix. I'll give you a chance to do this with me here on the spot. Just grab something to write on. Sentence number 1.
Não me parece aqui o que eles escreveram. Não me parece aqui o que eles escreveram.
I came up with this sentence for a few reasons. That first A in aparece tends not to be heard, and the verb itself can be confused with parecer. Only KJ wrote it correctly. I know this seems like I'm making a comparison, but at the Language Unschool, I see this a bit differently. If the majority didn't hear the A, then it only shows this is either a new verb for you or that, indeed, it's not a clear sound, as I've already mentioned. It's simply a. In short, you shouldn't feel bad about it. In fact, moving forward, you'll be more alert, and I bet next time you'll hear it. That initial noun was a funny one because I'm 100% sure every one of you knew this word, and yet only Adriana heard it or spelled it correctly. Writing numa when I said numa is perfectly logical though. The majority here is not at fault. You just need to be reminded that now, in natural speech, isn't enunciated very well. Real Portuguese is not Cinderella Portuguese. Now, that middle part of the sentence, aqui o que eles, is a perfect example of what I call a marriage with a child. Que will marry eles, and a child, I, is added in the middle for matters of stress. Now look at Laurie, someone who has 0 Portuguese under her belt, and yet she heard that sound. Sometimes it's really interesting to do this kind of exercise with these people, complete beginners, because they won't be searching for words. For example, it's clear Adriana is an experienced learner, yet she heard me say o que é que eles because she missed that A in aparecer. She fell into the trap of not trusting her ears and instead adapting the sentence to what made sense. Now, don't get me wrong, what she did is precisely what I advise, but it was unfortunate that she missed an important sound right at the beginning of the sentence. What about the end of the sentence? Well, what Doug wrote gives you a clue of how mean I was here. Yes, I was mean, but for a good reason. Remember my Night of Portuguese video? In it, I talk about how being aware of syllable division can make a huge impact on your listening comprehension. Here, I put side by side eles, which ends in sh, and escreveram, which starts with a sh as well. This means the single S Michael wrote makes perfect sense. I think that's a plus, especially for someone who hasn't officially started learning Portuguese yet. Sentence number 2.
Os passos eram estranhos. Os passos eram estranhos.
A bit of an odd sentence, I know, but this one is a great way to see the night in action. Os passos, the steps, sounds exactly as o espaço, the space. The verb following this, eram, has a nasal sound, which is an indication of plurality. Still, at first listen, these are hard to distinguish. But even KJ came up with another option, os espaços eram, os passos eram, which would have been fine in terms of meaning and sound, precisely the same as os passos. Fascinating, isn't it? How do I mark this? I don't, obviously. I'm proud of KJ, who I never met in my life. I'm thankful even because he's allowing to help you all see that it's not your fault you have difficulty understanding us. You just need the right support. Before we move down the sentence, this is a great reminder that a sh sound can come at the end of a word, but also at the start, with either es or ex. Being aware of these things is what will make a difference. Most people married passos and eram misspelled, but okay. A double S between vowels would produce the same sound. Why? Because I said os passos eram. Os passos eram. I'm a bit surprised no one wrote a Z in the middle, a Z, passos eram, but okay. What didn't make sense at all is that Adriana heard an I sound in there. Passeios and parceiros both have a very different sound in the middle. I think this was again a case of trying to rationalize. It's common, okay? I would suggest you find audio content with a transcript and practice trusting the sounds you're hearing first, without thinking, what word is this? And I say this knowing that these sentences were presented to you in a void, no context whatsoever. Sentence number 3.
O próprio espaço também estava bem arranjado. O próprio espaço também estava bem arranjado.
Here, I did include the word espaço. I know, I can be mean. Or you can see this as a very good learning opportunity. And look at that. It starts with a es, meaning a sh. And we have Michael, Jody, Doug, and Lori moving that first syllable of the word into the end of the preceding one. This is very common. Look, I know próprio is a funny word in Portuguese, and I could have said próprios. But then the article would have had to be plural as well, os próprios. And I didn't say it, and no one heard it. At least we agree on that. The end of espaço is a funny one. We have either no O at the end or an E. These letters, I call them the mistresses, vanish at the end of a word, and it's only natural that some people here didn't hear them. However, even though hearing an E instead of an O is something you all should work on, a final E equals whereas a final O equals U. We also got some pasta from Lori, which made me laugh. Obrigada, Lori. And then I looked closer and realized she didn't hear the final O, which is a good thing, and simply combined espaço with the initial T of também. Impressive. Now, também was really good here. Everyone heard it correctly. If you still mix it up with tá bem, have a look at this video afterwards, okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time in tava because Doug said it all. It's estava pronounced without the first syllable. We do this a lot. Keep an ear out. As for the last couple of words, almost everyone heard that closed A at the start of arranjado. Interesting, right? Could it be because there is no other verb arranjar? It was a bigger issue with parecer and aparecer. I know this is not the easiest exercise. Do you trust your ears or do you try to translate that into a clear message? KJ did both, and honestly, that is the best approach. But that only works when you have support to understand the rules of how we speak, while slowly building your vocabulary and understanding of the structure of the language. That's precisely what I can do within my program. If you're interested in becoming an unschooler, check the placement quiz below and let's talk. Your voice in Portuguese matters. Obrigada a todos os que me enviaram os ditados. Foram corajosos. Um abraço e até à próxima.